My camera is getting old. That is, it isn't getting old, it's actually quite new. It's a Sony A7 and it records beautiful, beautiful video in 1080p. There's so many A7s with 4K video have since appeared that mine's beginning to seem a little bit passé. I remember the purchase very clearly since it preceded my convalescence from an exquisitely painful operation. I'm talking about a hemorrhoidectomy. Now you have not, I do assure you, sat down for a nice hot cup of tea with the god of agony until you have experienced this procedure. And because of that, one tends to remember it. I may have passed my half century, but I now possess the backside of a mere infant. So the memory of my camera purchase is carved into the structure of my brain, just as the good doctor's surgical knife carved the structure of my rear end. So, back to my camera, and whether to decide that, like my old posterior, it requires replacement. 4K, of course, is the latest method the photographic industry has found to make us part with our cash. 4K is newer, it's sharper, it's better looking, it's more lifelike. 4K, god damn it, is just more real, isn't it? Actually, no, it isn't. Not even a bit. Not even close. It's a nice myth, it's a nice illusion. But photography is a medium of realism, not reality. They are very different things. It's often thought that more megapixels, sharper lenses, the latest algorithms and sensors will represent reality more accurately than did the last generation of kit. But here's the thing. They don't represent it more accurately, just differently. I love my iPhone, I really do, and the thing I love most about it, and the reason I bought an iPhone over an Android phone, is Hipstamatic, which, as you may know, is the original many-filtered film look simulating photography app. And in fact, this is precisely why my son bought an Android phone over an iPhone. My son has no time for fancy apps that synthesize dishonestly, in his view, a look. But the young fellow, in his eagerness to photograph truth, has failed to realize two things. Firstly, not using a filter doesn't mean you're not using a filter, because somebody somewhere has made a decision about what the unfiltered look of any particular camera will be. That's a subjective decision, governed by all manner of things, the technician's preferences, for example, their colour vision, their emotional state, their gender, their age, even their culture. There are many cultures, for example, that use the same word for the colours blue and green and appear unable to distinguish between them, seeing them as identical. The second point our filterless young friend has missed is that whatever subject he wishes to accurately photograph out there may not be out there at all. Hindu philosophy tells us there's no difference, literally, between the observer and the observed. Quantum mechanics in the double-slit experiment tells us pretty much the same thing. Psychologists tell us that perception is an active rather than a passive process, that the retina is an outgrowth of the brain, part of the active process of perception, not so much a place of recording as a place of creation. More conscious, it would appear, than unconscious. More active than passive. So whatever it is that's out there, beyond our skulls and bodies, doesn't just passively play on a screen somewhere in our minds. Something more mysterious is happening, something much more mysterious indeed. Any representation that truly wishes to portray reality, whatever that is, must first understand what reality is. And we don't. We don't have the first clue. Let's look at physics for a moment and begin with the common sense view. The desk in front of you, for example, is real, right? It's solid, it has width, height, depth, mass. It exists. Now let's look a bit closer. Let's go to the atomic level and we see that around 99% of solid matter is actually empty space. But due to the curious nature of the quantum processes that happen at the scale of the very, 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 very tiny, we can never measure the mass or position of that remaining solid 1%, an electron, say, definitely. All we can measure is its probability. That solid 1% then is only ever probably there. So, as philosopher Peter Russell has pointed out, the staggering conclusion must be that if all the particles that make up our universe are only probably there, then our universe, creation, the whole of our reality, is only probably there too. The message is very clear. As photographers, we should rid ourselves of the idea that there is an objective reality somewhere out there that we can passively record. There isn't. It is all, it would seem, a construction, a fancy, an interplay of mind and matter at the very deepest level of being. So although we think of photography and cinematography as essentially realistic media, they can never capture reality, whatever that is. A tintype, black and white negative, or a stream of binary code from an imaging chip is a representation of our subjective experience. The world, at least for my money, looks no more like a raw file from a Nikon D800, say, than it does a daguerreotype. Photography does not reproduce reality. Reality or being is a transcendent, metaphysical experience that seems mundane only because of familiarity. Have you ever tried to explain what it's like to be, to have awareness, to exist, to feel, to know? This experience is indescribable. It's beyond words, it's beyond understanding. And if we can't comprehend the experience, how on earth can we expect a mere camera to do the same? All representation is therefore metaphorical in nature, not literal. As photographers, we can only choose the most pleasing metaphor, and we should cease worrying immediately about accuracy and truthfulness of rendition. These concepts are largely meaningless. I think it was during the late 70s, or thereabouts, that the hi-fi or high-fidelity sound reproduction craze reached just about its silliest point. It was the time when a school friend would bang on repeatedly about his dad's Bang & Olufsen hi-fi system, about the incredibly good frequency response of the tape heads, or the almost zero wow and flutter of the tape transport mechanism, or the weight of the tone arm that I can still remember today. So much did he talk about it was adjustable to within 1/100th of a gram. And for a while I bought it, and I was convinced that the more technically perfect kit must of course render sound more realistically, must of course be more indistinguishable from reality. Except it didn't. And the revelation was this: what a good quality hi-fi sounds most like is a good quality hi-fi, not reality. Sure, a good quality hi-fi sounds something like reality, but so does a bad quality hi-fi or a 78 gramophone record. All of them offer a representation, And each representation is a metaphor of our subjective experience of reality, our subjective experience of being. All representation is metaphor. We can't show reality any more than we can experience the true, genuine fullness of being in reality, unless perhaps we happen to be a Buddhist master or some such spiritually advanced individual. 6,000 years or so ago, the wisest and most educated people in the world knew that the earth sat on the back of a giant turtle. It was self-evidently true. If not, the world would immediately fall into goodness knows where. Today's experts tell us the universe will continue to expand until there's pretty much nothing left except a few islands of heat. And that's true too, isn't it? The point is that reality changes. The truth of today is the quaint nonsense of tomorrow, even though nothing has changed except what we perceive to be real. Reality is created, not recorded. We simply cannot pin down an objective exterior reality that has an independent being of its own. And we cannot even begin to comprehend the nature of the state of being, our own consciousness. How this thing we call reality, this energy field that is only probably there anyway, how that becomes in experience, sights, sounds, smells, a nice hot cup of tea, the smile of a child, Paris or a Mark I Ford Escort, is a very, very, very deep mystery indeed. Reality is a subjective, not an objective experience. What reality actually is something so weird and wonderful, so totally outside at least our current understanding, so dependent on perspective, even perhaps on consciousness itself, that any attempt to record it truthfully must fail before it's begun. The best we can hope for is something that stands as a metaphor for our conscious experience. All representation, therefore, is metaphor and contains subjective, not objective truth. That's why photography is an art form. And that's why I won't be buying a 4K camera. And that's what I told the bloke in Dixon's. Thanks for watching. See you soon.